vegan or dealing with health issues, you might be considering going for plant-based cheese instead. But most people are curious about how this is made in factories and whether it's actually plant-based. Well, let's find out how these factories make their plant-based cheese. Plant-based or vegan cheese is usually made with a plant-based milk, as this would take away the animal aspect of the cheese. Depending on the brand, there are different types of milk used for plant-based cheese. A popular choice is unsweetened soy milk because it has a neutral taste and a high protein level, helping the cheese set. Other options include almond milk, cashew milk, oat milk, or in some cases, coconut milk. After choosing the milk that will be used to make the cheese, the factory adds a bacterial culture or microbial rennet to separate the proteins. High-tech factories use plant-based protein extraction machines to separate the proteins in the milk. This process allows the factory to coagulate the protein, forming a solid mass that is similar to the curd created when making dairy cheese. When adding the bacterial culture to the milk, they often supplement it with other ingredients like oils, emulsifiers, and thickeners. These include tapioca, arrowroot, pea flour, or agar, depending on the brand making the cheese. Cook the cheese curd until you achieve the desired texture. These ingredients make the plant-based milk curd creamier to achieve a cheese-like texture. Some factories use a complete cutting, mixing, emulsifying, and heating system to mix all the ingredients in the milk curd. For smaller companies, they might simply use an industrial saucepan to mix all the ingredients rigorously, creating a thick curd closer to becoming plant-based cheese. Blending the ingredients with the curd continues until it's smooth and uniform. Aside from the plant-based milk, fermenting agents, and ingredients added with the bacteria, the factory adds ingredients to improve the flavor and the texture of the vegan cheese. In some factories, they add plant-based oils and fats like cashew butter and coconut oil to make it taste and feel better. They might also add seasonings, herbs, and spices to the cheese before it is ready for the final step. Some vegan cheeses also contain thickeners and stabilizers, which give them the right consistency. Vegan cheese brands often try to use natural ingredients to keep their products completely natural and animal-free. Just like dairy cheese, plant-based cheese also has to be aged before the factory process continues. The cheese is aged to develop different flavors and make the texture of the cheese firmer. So now it's less creamy and more solid, drier cheese. The aging process is optional depending on the type of cheese. It is usually transferred to aging tanks or containers to get the job done. Vegan cheese is more like processed cheese than actual dairy cheese. But since it's made with milk, then the aging process is vital. The aging process intensifies the flavor of the cheese and is easily done in different ways at factories. In some factories, the cheese is dehydrated, placed into a dehydrator machine, or in smaller companies, placed in front of a fan, creating a dry crust. In other cases, the cheese is placed in a fridge, covered in plastic wrap, then flipped every few days. Another way to age the cheese is with fermentation. Some vegan cheeses are aged with fermentation, as this mimics the texture and flavor of normal dairy cheese. But they have to consider different methods to ferment it, as the proteins in plant-based milk react differently to the culturing agents than your standard dairy milk. Plant-based cheeses that have a spicy taste are usually aged with a spice blend. They can be placed in a cheesecloth with the spice during the aging process. The length of time it takes to age vegan cheese depends on the type of cheese being made and the brand. In some cases, it takes about 4 weeks, while in other cases, the cheese can be aged for 2 months. Now, using a cheese cutter, cheese grater, or the cutting part of the complete cutting, mixing, emulsifying, and heating system, the factory can now cut up the cheese in different pieces. Depending on the brand and the way their cheese is sold, the factory will cut and package the cheese in blocks, slices, or shreds. Then it is packaged, labeled, and dated. During the process of making vegan cheese, there would be quality control measures to provide end users with the best. For one, there's microbiological testing, which tests for any yeast, mold, bacterial pathogens, pathogens and other microorganisms. They also test for moisture content, water activity, and other moisture-related issues. Factories test for allergies too, like nuts, soy, or gluten, so that the information can be placed on the packaging. With this, they can provide well-made vegan cheese to their customers. Before you start wondering how to use vegan cheese as against dairy cheese, you should know that there's a stark difference between those two. Aside from the fact that one is made from plant and the other from animal milk, vegan cheese does not melt the same way as dairy cheese, or might not melt at all. Dairy cheese consists of caseins, which are a network of milk proteins that hold the milk fat together. Then, calcium bonds hold the protein strands in casein together. When you heat cheese, the fat becomes liquid and the calcium bonds dissolve, collapsing the network and making it melt. But vegan cheese does not have casein and has a different structure. Depending on the type of vegan cheese you buy, it might soften the cheese instead of melting it. Since it doesn't melt, that means it won't get stretchy. It doesn't have any lactose too, so it won't brown like your standard dairy cheese. Despite this, plant-based cheese has a wide range of uses that can be similar to the dairy cheese. Vegan cheese often has a creamy mouthfeel and texture. From long-aged vegan cheese that is similar to cheddar to cream cheese-style plant-based cheeses, there are many types that can be considered for your meals. Vegan cheeses can be used as a spread on crackers or bread, sprinkled on salads, filling for potato cakes, in salads, tartines, vegan quesadillas, vegan sour cream, cheese, and more. Almost whatever you can make with dairy cheese can be done with plant-based cheese. You don't have to shy away from eating vegan cheese, as it tastes very similar to dairy cheese. It has a tangy, tart flavor, but the other ingredients can affect the taste. Factories try their best to make the plant-based cheese taste similar to different types of dairy cheese. Thinking of having vegan cheese? Well, it's a good idea, as it tastes similarly to dairy cheese. If you've ever tasted tofu, then you should have tried something similar to vegan cheese. Most times, vegan cheeses are made with nuts like cashews because of their creamy textures. Have you tasted vegan cheese before? Now you know how it's made in factory.